Happy Friday, everyone, and thank you so much for sticking with me during this hiatus that I had. I'm Christine Nance, and I would like to present to you Ghost Stories, the hauntings of childhood trauma. Now, as you know, my podcast started last October. It was going really good. I had that done every week. Once December came, I decided to take just a little bit of a break because I started a new job. Then I went on vacation with my family, and then January 7th hit, and I had to have emergency surgery. Thought I was having a heart attack, went to the ER. Turned out I had a perforated ulcer where my stomach had opened up and was leaking stuff into my abdomen. So that took about 4 weeks to recover from. And then I had to get back into the swing of things. And it just one thing after the other kept happening. And I wasn't able to sit down and give my podcast what it needed. Now, I've had this written up for just a little bit, and it was time for me to sit down and go over this. Yes, I'm not in my regular studio because it's a little bit of a mess still, but I didn't feel like it was a good thing to just keep on postponing this because there were people that actually needed this information, use this information, and it's also good for me to get that information out to you. It's therapeutic for myself as well. So we've been through many subjects, and of course some of the things that I've had are requested by people that have left messages after seeing the podcast, and a big one was religion. They wanted to know how religion affected me as someone with childhood trauma. And so today, that is what we're going to cover. So let's just do a couple of housekeeping things so you understand. I do stutter. I know that I stutter. You don't have to tell me. I already know that. I've done that my whole life. And I also have a terrible memory. So I have my notebook here. I have my pen. Sometimes I have to make reference to that paper because I cannot keep track of that, especially once I get to talking and going off on who knows what other subject. I need to have that book here. So let's get on with this. We are talking today about trauma and religion. So we're going to go through just a little bit of a timeline for me. I started out in a Pentecostal church. It was an Assembly of God church in Mitchell, Nebraska. That was the very first church and the only church that I ever remember being a member of when I lived in Mitchell, Nebraska. So that was from a very small age until the time, well, not all the way up to the time that we were 13, but I think I was 11 or 12 when we did that. That's a whole nother story in itself. So during this time when we belonged to this church, this Pentecostal church, I was abused at home, and that was physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. My mother also was raped in the home, being beaten, coming to church with the marks of an abused woman. We were the family who came to church looking like we were poor. It's just how we presented. So that just is one of those things to think about as you see that family. You know the family. You see them come in and you're like, they're probably just having a rough time. We were shunned by church towards the end of our time that we were involved with this particular church for actions that my father did, which did not help at home because that just made more of an opportunity for us to be alone, be not accessible to the public. So we felt even more isolated once we were shunned by the church. Of course, I talk about this in one of the first couple of episodes, what happened between us and that particular church. So you may want to go back and reference that. It's a good thing to know. Even though that happened, I remained very faith-based. I was someone who talked to God regularly. I prayed on a regular basis. I felt like everything in the world had a purpose, and it was God who made that purpose for me. I didn't ever feel like during my time as a child in that abuse situation that I was alone as far as being faith-based. I felt like that was something that was very important for me. And I'm not sure if my mom made sure that we were in the church every time the doors opened to protect us from our dad or to grow our faith. But either way, it kind of did a little bit of both for us. And that was just something that was a foundation for who I was young in the church. I became a member of that church because a lot of churches believe that you have to be baptized in that church to become a member. And this church was no different. The full immersion into the water. It was a beautiful event for me. I enjoyed it, and I felt like I got a lot from this. That being said, it's just one of those moments that I just really remembered It made a difference. It made me feel connected to community that was faith-based. And it just was something that I knew was going to build me and make me a stronger person. This was all, like I said, through my years from birth until 13 years. I really don't even remember how old I was when I started going to this church, but that's all I ever remember. So it's, in that foundation pretty back far. We went to a Baptist church. I had to think about this. So we moved from moved from Nebraska to Kentucky. And we started going to a small local Baptist church in Lake City, Kentucky. This was a great little church. I don't remember anything happening with this church. Not that I'm saying anything bad happened with my first church, except for the shunning. That made a big difference in my life, and that's something that still sticks with me today. And the fact that we were so obviously that family that was abused and no one came to our aid, that's also something that has affected me in some way or fashion.